It's the first film in the Scream franchise to not feature Neve Campbell. That was highly publicized, but it's also the first one of the franchise to leave Woodsboro. We're going to the Big Apple for this one, New York City. Let's talk Scream 6. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for Scream 6. This is the latest in the big franchise, and it is in theaters right now. You can check out all the slashing soon enough, I'm sure, on streaming, probably Paramount Plus. But for now, you can check it out at the cinema, and we love that. I actually caught it in 3D. I didn't really want to necessarily, but it was sort of the most convenient time. I didn't even know it was showing in 3D, but it was, and it didn't really add much to it, but whatever. You can even check it out in 3D if you so desire. But listen, before we launch into all the stuff about this movie and my thoughts on it, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. Tons of great stuff to check out all the time on the channel. I try to put something new up just about every day, movie and TV reviews, and you can subscribe down below. I would love to have you aboard in that capacity, but even just liking this video, commenting, sharing, all that stuff does help the channel out. So, all right, let's talk about this movie. It's interesting because we just had the other week Creed 3, which was the first installment of another very long-standing franchise to not feature sort of the face of that franchise for the first time. You know, Sylvester Stallone, obviously a huge part of the Rocky franchise, and he was a heavy part of Creed 1 as well. A little bit less so maybe in Creed 2, sort of phasing him out a bit, and then due to some concerns and issues with the studio, he did not appear in Creed 3, and to be honest, I don't think he was missed. I think it was a natural sort of passing of that baton. And here again, Neve Campbell, highly publicized, but she did not feel that she was being offered what her name and face is brought to the franchise for 25 years, so she ended up walking and not being a part of this movie. Her name is mentioned, not Neve Campbell, of course, but Sydney, the character, is mentioned a few times in this movie because you do have Courtney Cox still here, reprising her role as Gale Weathers, of course. David Arquette and Courtney Cox were also part of Scream. Well, it's not really called Scream 5, just Scream 2022, the requel, as they called it. But they all participated in that. This one, Courtney Cox is the only one. Slight spoiler for Scream 5, but the Dewey character doesn't make it. I'm sure you probably know that by now if you care at all about this franchise and are watching this. But yeah, so he obviously is not in this one. But Courtney Cox does return as Gale Weathers, and most of the younger cast from the last one. Well, I shouldn't say most of, because some of them did pass away, of course, in Scream 5. But we've got a lot of the same people, including sort of the main draws here. Melissa Barrera, who I fell in love with in The Heights, and then she was in that Scream movie. But also Jenna Ortega. They play sisters, as they did in that fifth movie. So, of course, they're sisters again. I don't know why I even said that. But she, of course, is having a huge moment with the Wednesday show on Netflix and hosting SNL, and now part of this major franchise. So they both return. Mason Gooding returns as well. Jasmine Savoy Brown returns as well. And then newcomers to the franchise include Dermot Mulroney, who plays a police detective. We've got Jack Champion, who was one of the live-action people in the latest Avatar movie. He is here much older, too, because they shot that Avatar movie, like, years ago. So I think he's 18 now. I think maybe he was 14 or 13 or something when they filmed that. But there's also a few other people that we won't really mention because they're more of cameos. But you may have heard Hayden Panettiere returns as well, playing her Scream 4 character, who is now a part of the FBI, and so she's investigating the Ghostface murders as well. Obviously, she's got a little bit of a personal connection, since she was in that other Scream movie. So anyway, this goes along with what we know so far about the franchise. It's a bit of a dark comedy, a bit of a slasher send-up, while also being a great slasher movie, and then as well the sort of the mystery element of who is Ghostface. All of the hallmarks of a Scream movie are present here, and it is directed by the team that brought us the fifth installment as well. Matt Bettinelli Olpin and Tyler Gillett. I don't really know them from anything except Scream 5. I did not look them up, but they are back in the director's chair here. And a great opening scene, as always. Scream sort of thrives on that. So listen, my feelings about this franchise on the whole is that this is one of the great horror franchises of all time. I am not like a huge horror aficionado. I wasn't really allowed to watch them growing up. So I did see the first Scream in theaters when I was in college, and then I saw 2 and 3, I guess, on video. I didn't go to the theater for those, but I've seen, Scream 4, 5, and 6 in theaters. Scream 1 and Scream 5 I've seen twice in theaters, actually, and Scream, the original, I've seen so many times since. It's one of my favorite movies, definitely top 100 for me of all time. And I thought the 5th movie was a really, really good requel, as they said, and sort of brought those tones back after a while. It had been, I think, 11 years since we had Scream 4, and that was 11 years after Scream 3 unto itself. So, now they're coming out a lot more, quickly, because they're a big success again. But yeah, the Scream movie sort of in the middle of the franchise sort of dwindled a little bit. Scream 3 is by far the worst of the thing. I've only seen it once, but I remember just really not liking it. I wasn't grading then, but it's probably like in the C or C plus range. But the last one I really enjoyed. So let's talk about things that this does better than the last one, and then I think we can talk about some things that maybe it did not do so well. So one thing I really appreciated about the new Scream movie is that the character development is much better here than we saw in Scream 5. And I think part of that is, okay, well, now we've gotten to know the characters a little bit. But Scream 2022 was so much about, giving us the goods that a Scream movie provides, and giving us all the rules of a requel, and then, being so tongue-in-cheek about them. And then, of course, introducing a whole host of new characters while, giving us the legacy characters as well. Since that has sort of fallen off, Neve Campbell obviously opting not to be in this one, David Arquette's character not able to be in this one. This focuses more so on the characters that we met in the last movie, and I think it's for the better, because it's not just a total slash them up. We actually, at this point, at least me, care about these characters, and especially Jenna Ortega. We just love her so much as a as a human race, right? Everyone loves her, and I'll tell you what, I really think, I sort of said this in my Wednesday review as well, but I think she is definitely one to watch here in the coming years. I think she is going to be a total force in the Hollywood machine here in the next 5-10 years. But right now, she is just right in her wheelhouse with this. Her and Barrera have great chemistry together. Even though they were sort of estranged sisters, they do have that familial bond that we introduced in the 5th movie. So I like that part of it for sure. The killings here are, I think, probably some of the most gruesome of the entire franchise. Now, that does not particularly get my goat. Like I said, I'm not really a horror aficionado. I turn away more at those kind of things than anything. But if we're talking horror movies, I think that is probably the hallmark of a good one. If there's some interesting ways to kill people, and I think we have that here. So there's that, and then bringing it into New York gives us a chance to see some new venues. The last one was so steeped in Woodsboro history and lore, that they go back to the house even from the first Scream, and they talk about that, of course. So here we have a completely new set of set pieces and interesting, not necessarily landmarks, but there's some really, I think, cool set pieces here that we probably wouldn't have been able to utilize did we, stay in Woodsboro. So I liked that aspect of it as well. And to be honest, I'm okay that Neve Campbell wasn't in it. I know, it's, oh my God, how can you have a Scream movie without Neve Campbell? But you know what? I was okay with it. They mentioned the Sydney character a few times, and certainly having Gail there as that one kind of final link between the legacy characters and the new school characters. I think it worked, and it makes sense that she would be there reporting on it. She's a reporter, so her existence there, and she wrote her character wrote the books about it, which is brought up and stuff. Um, so I like that part of it too, that it made sense for her character to be. Why would Sydney go to New York City, to fend off Ghostface again? At least when it was in Woodsboro, it made sense. Okay, she's coming back home. Let's finish what we started, kind of thing. And of course, her character's not dead, so maybe in Scream 10, whatever, she'll come back, much like Laurie Strode did, for the Halloween movies, Jamie Lee Curtis. So her character is alive. So maybe we will see more of Neve Campbell in future Scream movies. But for this one, I don't think she was missed, to be completely honest. All right, now on to some of the negatives. I am not that good usually at calling who the killer is, who the ghost face is. But here, I was pretty early on with it, and I turned out to be correct. So, all right, I don't know if that's necessarily a negative, but usually I'm a little bit thrown. I was like, oh my gosh, it's that person. In this one, I wasn't really shocked at all. That's number one. Number two, I do think the ending scene, even though there are some really great kills, and it takes place in, I think, the most interesting set piece of the whole movie. So we spend a lot of time there. But I think it's a bit overly long. The movie on the whole is over 2 hours. I think the whole big finale scene is a little bit too long, and I think there's a lot of sort of over the top acting that I don't think it was on purpose. So that was a little bit of a turnoff. They weren't like leaning into it like it was on purpose. I didn't think. And then this is a little bit of a minor nitpick, and I try not to comment on, appearances and people's looks while I do reviews and stuff. But Hayden Panettiere, I didn't even recognize. Once I realized, oh, this is the girl from Scream 4, Kirby, I think is her name, the character's name. I was like, oh, okay, right. I forgot Hayden Panettiere was in that. She does not look like her. I don't know if she's gotten worked on or what, but I found it odd that 12 years after these other characters have seen her, they all seem to know who like Gail Weathers. Oh my God, Kirby. I wouldn't have recognized her, and I watched 4 seasons of Nashville with Hayden Panettiere. So, whatever. I just thought that was a little bit odd. But, all right. In terms of a grade, I think this is definitely not, top tier Scream. It's not up there with the first one. But, look, I think in many ways it's almost as good as Scream 2022. I think if you told me you liked this one more than that one, I'd say, okay, sure. They're not completely interchangeable. I personally think, the way they sort of brought everything back in the 2022 version was better handled, perhaps. But listen, if you're the 6th movie now in a franchise and you're still getting positive grades, I think that's a good sign. Really, I think this is just probably a hair down from that last movie. I gave that one a B+, which in retrospect, I could even go with an A- on, but I'll stick with my B+ for that one, while I give Scream 6 a B. All right, that is going to do it. We will see what happens next with this franchise. A lot of directions we can still go, and I'm all in. I've been there since the beginning, and I am all in for more Scream if they keep churning them out. So, all right, that will do it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It.